Hey guys, the Kamsh here. Today we're going to be taking a look at Gormok Zoo, which is a deck a lot of people talked about when Gormok the Impaler was first revealed. It's a pretty sweet card, so if you have at least 4 other minions when it enters, or its battle cry is that it deals 4 damage to a creature or a player, so pretty strong in that respect, because you can both go to face or remove the board. And obviously Zoo is a deck that usually has a lot of token synergies with things like Haunted Creeper, Implosion. Basically it makes a lot of small minions from other minions like Haunted Creeper and Implosion. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Zoo deck. It's a lot lower to the ground than a lot of Zoo decks, so we're trying to take advantage of the fact that the format slowed down a little bit for some inspired cards and things of that nature by playing, a more original style Zoo deck with some smaller minions and not like Void Caller, Mal'Ganis synergies or Doctor Boom. We might put Dr. Boom back in later. I mean, it is fine with Gormok, although if your Dr. Boom's surviving and so are the bombs, you're probably fine anyway. But we'll see what happens in the testing. But let's do a deck tech here, talk a little bit about the card choices and what they do, and then let's play some games. So we have 2 Power Overwhelming, just a great Zoo card in general. Helps your small minions trade up with your opponent's big minions. It pushes for lethal in a lot of different ways. It can get through big taunts. It's great with things with death rattles like Haunted Creeper, Nerubian Egg, etc. It's good with Imp Gang Boss and Implosion, all our other cards that make tokens. So we're not actually killing a minion with this that often. We're using an extra minion that we got a little bit of value off of. And it's obviously great with Void Terror because you can Power Overwhelming one of your smaller creatures, kill something, and then before the minion dies, you can eat it with Void Terror to get the extra stats on the Void Terror. We have 2 Abusive Sergeant. Again, similar reasoning because it buffs things, so it's both a creature and sort of a spell-like effect. It's giving you a minion +2 attack this turn, which again helps you trade up and does all the normal things that buffs do, but it's also a minion, so good with Gormok. It puts extra minions on the board, helps push damage, things of that nature. We have 2 Flame Imp, just a great creature. The damage doesn't really matter to you because you're usually the aggressive one. Against Face Hunter, it's not great, but you have a 1-mana 3/2 that can trade with their 1 and 2 drops. And there's not that much Face Hunter lately anyway. And then you have a 3/2, which is just great, and it's one of the best 1-drops in the game. Part of the reason that Zoo is such a great deck. We have 2 Voidwalker. Voidwalker is great because it also has good stats. It's a 1/3 taunt, just again for 1 mana, very efficient. And all these 1 mana minions help you flood the board. So your Gormok does something, and so your Direwolves do something, and things like that. And this Paladin's really popular now. This is good against Silverhand recruits, and just a great card in general. And again, we can buff it with things to make it even better. We have 2 Direwolf Alpha. A lot of Zoo decks, especially in the Void Caller era of Zoo, were cutting down to 1 or 0 because they were less focused on sort of the token synergies and more on pulling out Mal'Ganis and big demons. And we're playing 2 because we're playing like things like Echoing Ooze and just going maximum on all the token strategies because we want to push Gormok to be as good as he can be. So we're playing 2 Direwolves. They help buff everything, just great. Again, we talked about the reason why buffs are great in the deck, and this is really good with all your synergies, especially since you can put it in the middle of like all your imps, and then trade an imp, and then the next imp will get buffed and trade them. So it effectively can give many minions +1 attack in 1 turn for the sake of trading, which is just great. And it's a 2/2 itself, so again, very efficient card. We have 2 Echoing Ooze. Probably the only synergy we have with buffing it to make the clone big too is 2 Defender of Argus, but it's not terrible just by itself. It gives you a 2/4 worth of stats for 2 mana, and you could buff them with Direwolves and Power and Abusive and things like that, and it helps you enable Gormok. We have 2 Haunted Creeper. Again, we want the token strategies, and Haunted Creeper is just a very efficient minion because of the spiders that it gives you. So we're playing 2 of those. We're playing 1 Owl. Helps get us through taunts when we're being really aggressive, and against like Secret's Paladin, which is a really popular deck on ladder right now, it silences whatever they Blessing of Kings or Avenge triggers on whatever, or if they Cog Hammer something, that's really scary for us too. So this is just sort of a tech card in our flex slot to help smooth the deck. And usually, if you're only playing 1 silence, it'll be able to find a useful target. We have 2 Knife Juggler, which is, again, really great in this deck, more than in most decks, because you do have Implosion and a lot of the token cards that work great with Juggler. We have 2 Nerubian Egg, because again, it does something when it dies. It helps protect us from board wipes, just like Haunted Creeper, which is really important for this deck because of all the token synergies, we are really weak to things like Flame Strike, Consecration, etc. So Nerubian Egg and Haunted Creeper help that since they leave behind things when they die, and Gang Boss as well to a lesser extent against damage-based removal. and it's great with Power Overwhelming and Defender Vargas. We have 2 Imp Gang Boss. This creates 1/1 imps, so again really helps our strategy of flooding the board with small minions to enable our Gormok and other things like that, Direwolf, and this is just a very efficiently costed minion. We do have the 1 Void Terror like we talked about. 2 Implosion, this card's great. It deals with opposing minions, gives us imps, which we can often get more value out of than just 1/1s. There's a little bit of RNG aspect to it, but you know, a lot of the time you're happy if it hits for 3, and even in the worst case scenario, it's usually fine. So I'm playing 2 of those. 2 Defender Vargas, because it buffs all our small things, and some things are extra good to buff, like Echoing Ooze or Nerubian Egg. And again, a deck where we usually have a lot of small minions on the board, something that buffs them up and as a body by itself too is really strong. Gormok the Impaler, like we talked about, the deck's basically based around it. We have 2 Doom Guards, just because this is our finisher, it helps push damage, it's also really efficiently costed, and it's not too hard to dump our hand in this deck, especially in the Void Caller Zoo deck. If you didn't pull Doom Guard off Void Caller, it was a little bit awkward, because you had like Dr. Boom and Mal'Ganis and high curve stuff sitting in your hand. In this deck, we can dump all our hand before turn 5, other than Doom Guards and Lothebs, so it's pretty easy not to discard anything too meaningful with Doom Guard. And finally, we have Lotheb, which is just a great zoo card because it's a 5-mana 5/5 that protects your minions from a board wipe for a turn and just helps you close out the game. And also, it's a very efficiently costed minion and a good top end. So that's the deck. Check out the Mulligan guide on TempoStorm.com and check out the other videos for some games.